Hello, School Transportation Nation. Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Tony Corcoran, publisher and president of School Transportation News. Glad you're with us this week. Podcast brought to you by TransFinder, the leader in school bus routing software. Got a great tech tip from IC Bus this week, as well as a conversation with Stephen Whaley, who's the senior director of business development at the Propane Education Research Council. Also, we have a special guest, Mr. Gerald Blackard, the owner of Tok Transportation in Alaska. Mr. Ryan Gray is going to be speaking with him. Ryan, always great to have you on the podcast, my friend.
Oh, it's always great to be had. Great to be back. Yeah, I'm going to be talking with Stretch in a little bit. So far, the only electric school bus in operation in Alaska. And when I first spoke to him a couple years ago, right when it was new, it was really interesting to hear what he was going to be working on with it. Now he's got a couple years under his belt. So let's take a look under the hood to see how things are going.
Yeah, talk about testing it in harsh weather condition, Alaska. Mm-hmm. That's got to be some of the coldest environments an electric bus maybe has seen.
Oh yeah, he says it's the coldest. I think it's like to -80, so it's considered to be one of, if not the coldest places in North America. So
I don't even know what -80 is. Southern California, 40 degrees is. Everyone's got a coat on, so that's just how it goes. But yeah, -80.
What are you talking about? 55 degrees, or 60 degrees, I got a coat on. So yeah, we're drying out from our latest atmospheric river, and I guess there's more rain coming this week. I guess as in terms of when the podcast is coming out. But last week we got some pretty good wet weather, so we've been really wet here all winter, Tony. I think we're like 150% more rain, more water than like normal for us this time of year. So
yeah, well, crazy weather brings crazy situations. I saw a great story on our website about transportation teamwork bringing back California students after they got snowed in from a science camp. So it's good collaborative effort with the school district to get the kids home due to the extreme weather. That story's up on the website, guys, who want to read more about it. But lots of things like that happening all over the country. I know spring is supposed to be isn't it March 20th? Spring is sprung, but I don't know. It still feels like winter. Maybe Punxsutawney Phil, he did see his shadow. So we're in for more winter, I think.
Yeah, certainly. It's been a cold one, a wet one, a snowy one. So, obviously that always complicates student transportation services. But, the folks out there, you're pros at this. You've seen it all. But yeah, it was interesting. You mentioned that snowed in science camp was the Irvine Unified School District down here in Southern California. They had a bunch of kids that had gone up to camp and got buried in snow because we just have not seen the levels of snow in our local mountains like we do in like the Sierra Nevadas or up in Northern California. And so, that district, they're now saying, hey, going forward, when we're going to do these trips, we're going to actually look at the weather like 2 weeks in advance and really plan this out more because they learned their lesson. They had to work with, multiple school districts up in the mountains to get all those kids home, but they finally did. And as I'm speaking, they were still working on getting all the luggage down the hill. So, definitely lessons learned from the weather.
All right, Ryan, before we get to some more news headlines, I'm going to bring you a tech tip from IC Bus. You're looking for ways to improve your on-time performance and reduce operating costs? All IC Bus CE Series school buses now come standard with factory-installed telematics devices, including a 5-year connectivity subscription. Customers gain access to on-command connection, an industry-leading remote diagnostic solution, providing data that is visible and easy to understand and actionable. With OCC, your school district will have visibility to vehicle health and performance data at your fingertips, including EV-specific information like state of charge and estimated range. You guys can learn more about other standard capabilities of IC connected vehicles at icbus.com. That's icbus.com. All right, guys, welcome back. We're going to talk top headlines of the week. Ryan, I know we saw a company called Bechtel, and everybody's wondering, what is Bechtel? And first student promise partnerships to boost school bus electrification efforts. Ryan, you want to fill everybody in on what's happening there?
Absolutely. So Bechtel, for some of you out there, might recognize that as a 125-year-old traditional engineering firm. I mean, they built the Hoover Dam. They built the Bay Area Rapid Transit System up in the San Francisco area. They've done numerous power plants. They're a global company, but this was really their first foray into electric school buses. So as you mentioned, they are now partnering with First Student. They're planning to deploy 30,000 school buses, which is nearly 2/3 of First Student's fleet by 2035. So what Bechtel's doing is they're basically building the EV infrastructure, the chargers. They're kind of the one-stop shop, construction, design, build, and deployment. So it's going to be really interesting to see the latest new company on the scene, at least in terms of electric. We've seen so many companies and so many brand new companies start up that are addressing the electric vehicle space, and especially school buses. But Bechtel, like I said, 125-year-old company, they're bringing their expertise to the plate.
Yeah, I know. And speaking to Alex Cook, who was the STN Innovator of the Year for 2022, and we are looking for nominations for 2023, guys. So if you're a private fleet out there that's got someone really innovative on your team, if you go to the STN website, you can nominate them. We'd love to get people out there. Mr. Alex Cook was saying, Bechtel has kind of such a global economy of scale that it really is potentially going to allow for student to access their buying power potentially and really be able to get equipment deployed quicker, because some of the bigger issues are being first in line to access the equipment, because there could be very long lead times, 50 weeks, 60 weeks, 70 weeks. Bechtel might have the ability to really provide a speed up process to access charging equipment and things like that. So this is going to be a very cool partnership that I have a feeling is going to help First Student achieve that really lofty goal of 2/3 of their fleet by 2035. It sounds not that far away. What's that? Talking 12 years?
12 years,
but that's
yeah.
a lot of buses, Ryan. 30,000 buses is a big number, man.
Absolutely, and certainly looking at the OEMs have been telling us for a while that they're ramping up and they're going to be able to address this need out there. But it's really hard to kind of in the mind make that leap, seeing that this industry is used to on a good year, 35, 40,000 buses across all dozen or, give or take OEMs, to think that, one company could get that much, just not factoring all the other companies, all the other school districts. So it's going to be fun to watch. Justin Britt, who's Bechtel's GM of semiconductors and their EV business, he was telling me, despite Bechtel kind of being new or newer to the EV space, they're really relying on, they've constructed over 200,000 cellular sites, and they've laid tens of thousands of kilometers of fiber. So they're definitely not new to, the power game. And of course, I mentioned earlier, they've built power plants, full on, power plants. So, this is not like they're just Johnny come lately. And I think you're right, Tony, with that buying power. I think obviously First Student carries a pretty big stick in terms of that as well when you have such a large fleet. So I think that looks to be a pretty nice marriage of the two. They're both bringing some significant economies of scale to the equation.
Yeah, another big player last week, we had Jennifer Rumsey, who had made an announcement at the Green Truck Summit out in Indianapolis about Cummins' new venture, which they're in essence launching or relaunching, I guess, their EV brand or New Power brand under this new thing called Accelera. And I know you mentioned it a little bit last week, Ryan, but, we've had a few more kind of things come out about Accelera. I know they're trying to get to this destination zero strategy. They were talking hydrogen, they're talking electric, they're talking about kind of all the fuel agnostic technologies that are on the horizon. But, they mentioned a partnership with Bluebird 1,000 electric buses over the next 12 to 18 months, kind of speed up that process. So very curious. We've got some big heavyweights in the power and electrification industry making moves.
Absolutely. And, it's really interesting with that fuel cell, and we're supposedly supposed to see the first hydrogen fuel cell school bus option hit the market maybe this year from Pegasus Specialty Vehicles. So, it's definitely a new era. And things seem to be changing every day. There's some folks that I've talked to that regarding fuel cell that are kind of like, this will be really interesting to see proven out. And we heard that same thing about electric, right? And it's still being proven out. And as well, we're going to talk to Stretch in a minute and hear his experience and perspective on things. But I think that this proving grounds is just going to continue to play out for all these various energies and fuels, as just like what we've seen with technology. It's just kind of a brand new game. And I touch on that a little bit with my column this month in the magazine with the tech race. So much of the school bus to the general public looks like it hasn't changed at all. But as we know here in the industry, whether you're talking about the energy or the fuel or the technology, so much, the GPS has just, revolutionized school busing, probably at least to date more so than what we've seen with electric. Although electric, obviously has that big promise once it really gets to significant numbers in the industry. But just, how much has changed and improved with student transportation services that just isn't necessarily seen to the naked eye.
Yeah, Ryan. Also, one of the things that I think might throw the general public off too is school transportation operations keep their buses for extended periods of time. So buses that are 10 years, 15 years, maybe even 20 years old plus are still on the road. So, our vision of that bus spewing diesel fumes out of the back with black soot, we don't really think of it that way much anymore, but those buses are still out there. I see them in LA, and at what point do people start to sunset those buses and get them off the road? And I think, again, that's part of these government programs. They're trying to get people to decommission or drill the engine block or send the buses away to somewhere else or, destroy them, just so there's not those kind of heavy pollutants on the road. And these are all kind of challenges that the industry faces because you're all dealing with budgetary challenges. You can't just pull the trigger on a few hundred new buses out of the blue. It's going to take funding and planning or taxpayer bond measures. There's a lot of funding mechanisms out there, but usually you got to take little bites of the apple. You can't just eat the whole thing. So I think those are always things that we struggle with as an industry because the optics of school transportation to the general public, we always kind of have to almost inoculate that or really give people some context, like this is a way it's going. And you see school busing obviously in the more public eye because of all the federal money that's being allocated, or high-ranking government officials are talking about it during press conferences, or the EPA is talking about it. I mean, out of the last 2 to 3 years, Ryan, I don't think I've had or heard school buses uttered by the political environment ever in my lifetime more than it has been in the last couple of years. And simply all that is around energy. And it's catching a lot of wind in the sails. And we're seeing that even at STN Expo. The STN Expo in Reno, the trade show is sold out, completely sold out. And there's a huge percentage of companies that are in the energy space. So, we've got Green Bus Summit, we've got STN Expo, we've got our Transportation Director Summit. There's just so much you're going to get at STN Expo this year, especially Reno. We also have Indianapolis, which is in June. That's the 2nd through the 6th. We've got Green Bus Summit launching there as well. That's nearly sold out. And guess what? A lot of energy companies, a lot of interest in that space. And I feel like there's so much happening. We also have to remember the people. So I know you've worked to develop a training curriculum for mechanics, technicians, fleet managers around our national inspection training. But also with that, we have, hey, let's look under the hood or get under the carriage of a propane bus, of an electric bus. What do I need to do as a mechanic or a fleet maintenance professional to address this? How do I consider what are the new things I need to be aware of? What do I need to be up to speed on? So we're really trying to innovate at STN Expo and get everybody up to speed on all the latest and greatest technology, connect you with all the latest and greatest manufacturers. Guys, you can learn more at stnexpo.com. And again, Indianapolis, that's June 2nd through the 6th. We've got our early bird special. You can save $100 on your registration. Also, STN Expo and Green Bus Summit out in Reno, Nevada. That is July 14th through the 19th. We have our super early bird still in play, so you can save $200 there. So guys, make sure you go stnexpo.com, get all the latest information, and really appreciate everybody considering coming this year. Love to see it this summer. It's lots of great training. Mr. Ryan Gray is always herding cats, getting everybody there, right, Ryan?
Absolutely. I'm in the midst of herding a lot of those cats right now. So yeah, stay tuned. We're going to get an updated agenda anyways for Indianapolis up very soon. Again, herding some cats, and then Reno's going to be following very shortly.
Great. Right to one of our interviews with one of our Green Bus Summit partners at both Indianapolis and Reno, the Propane Education Research Council, talking to Stephen Whaley. All right, School Transportation Nation, super excited to bring to the stage Mr. Stephen Whaley, the Senior Director of Business Development for the Propane Education Research Council. Steve, welcome, buddy.
Tony, it's always good to talk with you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, my pleasure. We always catch each other at a show, a conference here or there. We're looking forward to having Perk with us at STN Expo and our Green Bus Summit coming up here in the summer in June and July. And you got lots to share. There's a lot happening in the world of propane, and we got funding coming down the pike from the EPA. We're still holding our breath. When is that going to come out? What are the details? So I'm sure everybody is poised and ready, and you're ready to help them buy some propane vehicles. Well, they got some money in the bank from the federal government, yes?
Indeed. And we're still picking up the pieces from those who didn't get funded last time and helping them out because, the propane solution, although it's really nice to have grants, it's not necessary because it's such a low capital, cost to get in, and the infrastructure is nothing, and the fuel cost is so low. Even if you don't get your funding from EPA, we can still bring a whole lot of value to the table for those who want to achieve some higher sustainability goals because it's so financially sustainable to do it.
Excellent. Well, energy has been the topic du jour this year so far. We've obviously talked a lot about electric. We've talked a lot about what's happening with diesel and the new GHG regulations that are coming down the pike. Now, propane, if I'm not mistaken, already meets those standards, correct?
We do. We have our solution with Roush and the Bluebird, and also with PSI and the IC buses that already meets the 0.02 2027 emission standards. So we're really glad that we're way ahead of the schedule to meet those demands. And of course, those emissions are met without any of the diesel exhaust fluid, none of the EGR. There's no regen on these things. There's no particulate matter filters that need cleaning or replacing. All of this happens with a three-way catalytic converter, pretty much just like your passenger car, that doesn't require any of that kind of maintenance. So it makes it super easy for student transportation directors to be able to plan out their maintenance because you don't have to do any of those maintenance costs.
Yeah, and I know we were talking before that, the product roadmap for other engine manufacturers, Cummins specifically, right? They haven't had a propane solution and they added it to their roadmap. And I feel like it's getting closer and closer for this thing to be ready for prime time. And I know we were just talking, and you actually have a prototype version that you displayed at a recent conference and trade show. You want to talk about like the reaction from people about that product?
Sure. Cummins is the world's largest, engine manufacturer now, in this on-road space. And as Jennifer Rumsey, the CEO of Cummins, announced at the show last week in Indianapolis, they're diversifying their solutions immensely. And propane is one of those. So it's going to come out first in the spring of 2025 on the 6.7 liter platform. So they have the same diesel block that's going in diesel and gasoline and natural gas and things like that also will be in propane. They call it their fuel agnostic program. But because propane is able to, set up all the infrastructure and all of the fuel costs are so much lower, I'm not going to, put words in their mouths, but it's one of their faves, I mean, it does all of this, and school transportation folks know about propane already. So we'll be able to fill in some of the other gaps with other bus OEMs that may not have had the solution that they wanted on propane before. That will be there now. So we'll have a really good mix for student transportation directors moving forward after the spring of 2025.
Yeah, that's exciting. As well as, if I'm not mistaken, the federal rebate was authorized. Normally, it's like always authorized in the rears, but this time around, they got multiple years of reauthorization. So you actually can plan for that rebate. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's the alternative fuel tax credit. And for those who aren't paying those road taxes, like student transportation doesn't pay road taxes on their fuel, but they still get 37 cents a gallon in the form of a check from the IRS for how much propane that they're using. So it's not a tax credit, but it's actually a check. And we have fleets, that are going through, hundreds of thousands of gallons, getting a lot of money every year back. And just like you said, it's always been a 1-year thing, and sometimes it's been retroactive. This is in place for 22, 23, and 24. So up until December 31st of 2024, exactly this 37 cents that you're getting back per gallon.
Yeah, that's really great for business managers. They can plan accordingly. School transportation can put some more money back in the classroom, or maybe they can go buy another propane bus with it. You never know. That's, that sounds like a lot of money.
Yeah, well, it is, especially when, you can get the propane for student transportation directors because there's no road tax. Usually we're at about $1.60 a gallon for the commercial market, but that's got, 18 cents worth of federal and another, 20 cents or more for their state. But, this brings it down easily to $1.20 minus 30. So you're around $1 a gallon, depending on where you're at in the country, for fleets to be able to fuel their buses. And that's a great avenue for achieving that financial sustainability so that you can be environmentally sustainable.
Yeah, excellent. And I know obviously the other big part of the conversation is the movement towards EV. We've seen a lot of the OEMs driving the conversation out there, pushing this. And we had an interesting solution that you had presented at STN Expo in Reno with one of your partners on basically a mobile fueling station, renewable propane that actually could charge electric vehicles, which was revolutionary, right? And everybody was so excited about that concept. And here we are, fast forward about 8-9 months. And, what's kind of been the activity? Can you share a little more about, if people are considering that,
Sure.
But also considering the infrastructure, because that's a really big challenge that many districts are faced with. And most people are in this pilot stage of maybe we're trying 1 or 2 to really see if it's the right fuel choice for us. So there's some comparisons going on too. Maybe they try a propane, maybe they try an EV. Which do they like? What fits better based on their geography, their climate, what the functionality is, what the accessibility to charging is. So it's a lot of interesting conversations going on in that space. You want to kind of unpack that a little bit for our audience?
Sure. And it's changed a lot since Reno in July. We've really upped the game here on it. It was a level 2 charging. So you're, for a school bus, you're talking about, 12 hours or more to get that thing going. Well, the demand for this concept was so high because getting an electric utility to get power to your place and have the right transformers there and getting all that infrastructure in, I mean, it's not just the cost, but the amount of time, 12, 18, sometimes 24. And in some places, especially in your neck of the woods, years before they could get it there. What we're able to do with this solution is allow districts to have a off the grid, standalone, not just a propane refueling solution, but also a DC level 3 with 2 hoses with solar, wind generating a charge to the battery, as well as a propane generator. So you know that your grid is super clean. Well, all 3 of those components providing energy for this station. And it fits. Well, we put it inside at the booth at the Work Truck Show. It's a pretty small footprint, but it's all standalone. It takes care of itself. And you can, set this up, and you could even lease this equipment so that you can try out your propane, try out your EV, or just try propane or just try EV. But the grid is going to be clean, and you don't have to send it through transmission lines. So 100% of the efficiency of this goes right into charging your bus, because you lose about 60% of the energy when you go through all those transmission lines from the power plant to get to your place. So it's very efficient, and it's very affordable, and it allows you to do that. Hey, what am I going to do? I know I can't do diesel, so I have to find something else. This allows you to understand the duty cycles of propane, where you can go 400 miles on the 93 gallons that you can fit in there, or you can do that DC level 3 charge in 3, 4, 5 hours at the most, and be able to get this thing done and get back on the road to try out your EV as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know we were discussing comparing EV to propane and the ability to potentially work with PERC to identify or analyze kind of the benefits to your district. Do you want to share kind of how someone would accomplish that with you?
Oh, sure. I mean, everybody wants to, find out, hey, how much better can we do than diesel? So, West Virginia University, the same folks that kind of busted Volkswagen for that NOx scandal, also did a test, and we've actually had subsequent tests from that. But right now, we're at 94% reduction in those harmful toxic emissions that, cause the respiratory illness for kids and things like that. So we got 94% reduction in NOx. So we're well on our way to a very, very sustainable achieving those sustainability goals. And we do that at a price point, that's about almost parity with diesel, but it's about $6,000 more on a national average. So we're able to do that in a real good, sustainable way and meet those directions. If we want to do the greenhouse gas comparison, we're substantially less, especially when we go into our renewable propane, which is quite prevalent there in California, Oregon, and in Washington now because of the low carbon standard fuel credits. Even Sacramento's Elk Grove has been running on renewable propane since they started about 4 years ago. So for those who want to reduce, greenhouse gases, those who want to reduce toxic emissions, propane's got a great package for making that happen.
Well, great. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing with us all the things happening in the world of propane. And, you want to get out there a little more information on some of the different things you're doing. How do the people reach out to you? How do they contact you?
We have our site, propane.com, and we have a special section just for student transportation. So it's just all the case studies with our student transportation directors who've been using propane, the case studies that show we're averaging about $3,500 per year per bus on fuel and maintenance cost savings. And it's all at propane.com.
Beautiful. Stephen, thank you for coming on. Great having you. Always a pleasure seeing you. Can't wait to see PERC at the Green Bus Summit at STN Expo this summer. You guys make sure and check them out as well. They'll have lots of great information and resources for you to learn more about what's going on in the world of propane.
Tony, thanks for having us. We'll see you in Indy.
Pleasure. Take care. All right, guys, before we get to that next interview with Ryan, we have a special message from TransFinder. Do you remember the dynamic duo Batman and Robin from the old 60s show Bang Boom Pow, right? Well, there's a new dynamic duo on the scene. That's TransFinder's Route Finder Plus and Wayfinder. Route Finder Plus is TransFinder's award-winning industry-leading routing solution. And Wayfinder is the driver app that is changing the way drivers and subs approach their routes. Together, this pair provides the winning combination to help combat your school transportation woes, including driver shortage, inefficiencies, student discipline issues, while helping you improve the driver experience. Route Finder Plus is intuitive, browser-based, and includes route optimization to help you build the most efficient routes possible. Wayfinder, the driver app, provides turn-by-turn instructions and allows users to take attendance and work seamlessly with Plus. You guys can learn more about this dynamic duo by emailing getplus@transfinder.com or giving them a call at 800-373-3609.
We want to welcome our guest for the week, Gerald Stretch Blackard, owner and school bus driver, the sole proprietor of Tok Transportation Services in Tok, Alaska. Stretch, thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, you're welcome. It's good to be here.
So, Stretch, we first started talking a couple years ago when I first learned that you were operating the first electric school bus in Alaska. First of all, now your name is Gerald Blackard. You go by Stretch. What's the backstory to that? Why do people call you Stretch?
So I've been using Stretch since I left the hospital when we were born a long time ago. My mom didn't care for the name too much. My dad liked the name, but they said we're not going to name our kid Stretch on his birth certificate. So I've been called Stretch since I was just born, and it's just kind of stuck, and I've used it ever since.
Awesome. Well, it's not a stretch to have electric school buses in Alaska. A lot of people might think, what? That's crazy. But you've been operating it now for 3 years, correct?
On the third year.
I think you have one of the Thomas-built buses, that C2 safety liner, Julie.
Yep.
So quickly, tell us how that came to be. You were kind of on the cusp of electric school buses, and especially in your area.
It was kind of an odd thing. I had went to a transportation conference for the NAPT, and they had an electric bus there. And so I got to drive it around, got to see it, and I got this little spark of that's kind of cool. Wonder if I could get something like that. And then it kind of went away. But a year later, when the EPA grant stuff was coming out, I decided, well, why not? Why don't we try for this? So I filled out all the applications, sent it all in, and I also filled it out for a propane bus also to try one or the other. I did get accepted to win the grant for the electric bus. So then the first manufacturer that I had got all the bids from was looking like it wasn't going to happen to get one of their buses. So went with the Thomas through our local Anchorage dealer that we had, and were able to put it all together. I had to kind of sell us on being able to operate the bus here, because just like everybody else has concerns about electric vehicles in the cold, mainly the batteries, I had to kind of sell how we operated and how my plan is to make this bus be viable to work in this cold climate.
Yeah. So now you're located in Alaska's, I think it's called the Eastern Interior, correct? I think I looked in. So to give our audience at home an idea, kind of that eastern part of Alaska, I think it's about 200 miles southeast of Fairbanks and about 300 and change miles from northeast of Anchorage.
Right.
So when you're talking about, Alaska, the cold, you're right there in the middle of it. How cold does it get in your area?
We're kind of stated to be one of the coldest inhabited places in North America. And that's kind of debatable, I guess, but it's probably only by half a degree or something. But Tok has seen into the negative 80s before. Every winter, we get into negative 60 at least once, seems like. Right now, this morning, we had negative 6 this morning. I'm ready for it to be done, but it's still here. It's just a colder place to live. Even you go up on the mountains just outside of Tok, and it's a little warmer than it is down here in the valley.
Ooh, as cold as negative 80. I don't even think we're supposed to go outside in such cold weather, but at least not for me. But I mean, you're obviously more used to it than the rest of us. So it's really interesting. Now, I was reading something, because you had mentioned that you actually got the grant through the EPA, because I was reading somewhere that it was mentioning the Alaska Energy Authority was involved. Maybe they kind of worked in conjunction to help you with the grant, or kind of how did that all come to be?
The Alaska Energy Authority was the kind of the distributors of the EPA grant. So they're the ones that manage the funds. Each state was given their allocation.
Gotcha. Okay. So this is going back again to like around 2019 timeframe or so, 2018 maybe, when this all went down?
2019. Oh, so 2020 is when we received the bus.
Okay. So you probably were at that one NAPT conference when Thomas was showing its Julie. I remember when they unveiled it. I can't remember where that was, but I remember seeing that big unveil. So talking about the operation. So again, Tok Transportation. It's you're the sole proprietor, correct? You're driving the route or the routes. Tell our audience first of all, what kind of service are you providing? How many runs or routes are you doing? How many kids are you transporting a day?
We have 5 buses that we run for Tok School.
Okay.
And I have 7 employees. I try not to drive very often, but I'm a backup driver for when they need me.
Okay.
I get to clean the toilets. I get to sweep the floors, change oils, rotate tires, just about everything that I've even taught myself how to do books for the finances. So I do most of it.
Absolutely. Yeah. You gotta learn how to do those books definitely when you're running a business. So that was interesting. So you said 5 employees or 7 employees. I think when I first met you, I was under the impression it was just you, but so you have the one electric school bus. What are the other 4? You said you were interested in propane? Are the other ones like straight diesel?
The others are all diesel. We have Thomas and a couple Bluebirds, but yeah, all diesel buses.
Okay. So give us an idea of like comparing, obviously from an emission standpoint, the electric school buses should be 0 emissions. You were talking about the cold, right? So, and I read an article from a couple years ago where you were talking about the effect of using the heater. A lot of the folks that we're talking to here in the on the mainland or in the continuous 48 are still using diesel fuel-fired heaters for their electric buses. Curious if you're using those or if you're using straight auxiliary heat from the electric bus.
So we are 100% electric on our bus.
Wow. Okay.
When Thomas was building this bus, they didn't have an option for any other sources of heat. It uses a lot of electricity to run that. I have better data now of what it actually costs and what it uses to run those heaters and run in the cold. One of the biggest problems with school buses and electric is the interior of the bus is so large. Trying to keep that heated is difficult.
Mm-hmm.
And so I kind of put down some numbers of what I got kind of like at the beginning of the year and end of last year and during the winter last year. And the bus has been costing about 88 cents per mile to run in normal temperatures. I would say that's probably down to like 20 degrees. We get any colder than that, it starts dropping down pretty fast because you have to open the doors so often and it's cold. And so we're running probably about $1.98 per mile to drive the bus in the cold temperatures versus the diesel bus for the same mileage costs. This was at $5.29 a gallon. We were at 53 cents per mile to run a diesel bus.
Interesting. So it's actually coming out. The electric bus is more expensive, is what you're saying, to operate per mile.
Yep. For us, it's a lot more expensive. We use
for you, yeah.
For me, because our electric rate is, I don't know how high it is versus the highest, but we're at 59 cents a kilowatt hour to run the bus, which is extremely high. Most places are in the teens. So like 15, 14 cents per kilowatt.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that makes a big difference on the cost of the bus.
Absolutely. I was going to ask you, so from a business case standpoint, because you're operating a business and even school districts, they should be obviously paying very close attention to the line items. But are you going to be interested in looking to add more electric buses just based upon your experience so far? I mean, you had mentioned you were looking at propane. What's the replacement cycle look like for you in terms of those other diesel buses? I don't know how new those buses are in comparison, but what are you prognosticating as you move forward? So
for us at ours and how much the electric bus costs, I will not be getting another electric bus. There is a few little mechanical, more electrical little gremlins that wander around. And part of it is because it's a new technology.
Mm-hmm.
But the bus costs me more at this point than it would cost to buy a new diesel bus just to run the bus.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And what I have a big nervousness about is getting into the out of warranty times when I have to start replacing parts. The components for electric vehicles, and especially these buses, are extremely high versus the diesel buses. I had to replace an air compressor that had failed, and they're getting that kind of figured out, and it was under warranty, but the cost of the air compressor was over $13,000.
Oh.
And that's pretty high prices. And I don't see that changing for any other components that are in the buses. And so when it comes to a time where I have to replace these parts, the batteries are given a life of 10 to 15 years. And I don't think that changes for any of the manufacturers. To replace batteries, we're looking, I don't know, over 30 grand to replace batteries.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a 10-year life. Where I'm getting my diesel buses, I have some that I just retired that were 2002. So I can run 20 something years on a diesel bus. We're not putting very many miles on them, but yet electric bus is going to have a lot less life, more of a throwaway component kind of style thing than what the diesels are. And that's kind of hard to swallow when it comes out of your pocket. And that's also something that I don't know if districts are looking at in the long term is fixing these buses. They might have got them under a grant, but how are they going to deal with the infrastructure costs when there's more things that are electrified? I can see the electric rates going up and the parts cost and the repair costs. We've had the bus quit us on the route twice this year. And those are kind of things that make you, okay, that's not extremely pleasant. So there's the downsides to having this.
Absolutely.
I think it is something that can work and it can be viable, but there is things that are a little bit more scary that need to be looked at that I think are kind of glossed over a little bit.
Absolutely. And with the infrastructure too, I mean, we have enough challenges just getting, the chargers in place in our bigger populated cities down in the 48. What was your experience in working with your utility to get the power you needed to your facility? And give us an idea, because, your remote part of Alaska, there's not, electric chargers everywhere. So if you're, and I don't know how long your longest route is, and you can, tell us that, or if you're doing field trips, maybe some sports events, if you're going to take that bus to a certain area, that's obviously got to weigh on you. And that's why you have diesel buses probably to do some of those longer routes.
So you mentioned our distance from Fairbanks and Anchorage, 200 miles from Fairbanks. The closest town we have is Delta Junction. They're 100 miles away. The range of the school bus is 135 miles on a good day, all flat, hauling no load. So the bus doesn't get to go on any field trips. It gets to stay in Tok.
Mm-hmm.
We run it 40 miles a day, roughly on the routes, and it can handle 40 miles very easily, even in the cold. And so for our route length, it works perfect for staying in town. What was the other thing you asked about there?
Oh, I was talking about the infrastructure. So like working with your utility to get, first of all, the power to your facility that you needed, because obviously that's something that no matter where you're located, you have to figure, okay, this is your existing facility. What do you need to do to that facility? And especially if you're going to be adding more electric buses in the future, you need to make that scalable. You need to reconfigure potentially your entire parking lot.
Right. So ours is housed inside. So the charger is put inside the bus barn, and we added a second meter to the building. So in order we're running single phase, not three phase, because we don't use a lot of electricity. So we just ran another 200 amp service in to run that charger. It's on its own. We have it connected to the solar panels. So it's really easy to track those numbers because it's its own bill, it's its own tracking. It was really easy to put in that way because it was its own service, and it didn't cost a lot to do that. But what I did find out recently was anytime that you go over 20,000 watts as a demand, so not as a total addition, if the charger boots up and it goes over 20,000 watts, I get a demand charge from the power company, and I didn't realize this when I first started. So now I pay an extra $250 to $350 a month just for that demand charge that I didn't have before. So now I'm working with the charger company to try to get that turned down so I stay under that 20,000 mark so I can not have to spend that much. I was only hitting 23, but it's just enough to go over.
Gotcha.
So it's working out these little issues that are kind of a pain in the rear, but stuff that we have to kind of work through to make it as efficient as possible.
Absolutely. And are you running some power management or charge management software? You mentioned you're working with your charging company. Do you have any of that software to try to help you with that?
We have been working with Highland Fleets, and Highland Fleets out of the Northeast, they have a dashboard set up where they've connected the bus and the charger to it. And we've been working trying to get that figured out. It doesn't have the seamless integration between the charger and their dashboard yet and back to me. So I don't have that set up at this point, but that's in the works to get there.
Gotcha. And I wanted to, you mentioned I was gonna bring this up. Your solar panel, it's pretty impressive looking. I've seen some pictures of it, and some of the articles that have been written about your operation. So obviously, half of the year you're in pretty much total darkness. Another half of the year, it's pretty much almost daylight, around the clock. Tell us about your solar charger. I understand it only gets you about half the power you need from when you're plugging it in, but still, it's pretty impressive looking. Tell us about that.
The solar is less than half. So I just looked at some numbers this morning. In the last 30 days, I've used 1.8 megawatts to charge and run the school bus, just the electric bus. There's no other power on that. We produced a little over 550 kilowatts. So only about a third of that is what we're producing. But the amount I get to use is even less. I only get to use that solar power when the charger is plugged in and running. So we're producing about 9,000 watts at full charge capacity, where the charger is using 21 to 23 kilowatts. And the usage is hard because part of the day when it gets the best sun, the bus is out on the run. Or days like today, we're getting really good sun, but we're on spring break, so I don't need to charge the bus. There is no storage. There's no payback from the power company. So once I produce that and it goes back in, it's not usable power. Mm-hmm. I figured that from the numbers, I'm only being able to use between 10 and 15% of the power that the school bus uses is solar power.
Okay. Interesting. So again, the $60,000 question, I guess, would be, since really electric, I think you've obviously learned a lot of lessons since when you first got it, and you were kind of the press's darling. There, everyone was coming to you going, "Oh my gosh, Tok, Alaska has an electric school bus." I know the local media and some of the national media really fell in love with you there for a while and wanted to get your story. Obviously, things have not worked out like probably you had hoped with the electric school bus. So again, going forward, you mentioned you looked at propane, you have diesel, you thinking that you're probably going to stick with diesel. But if you can look, because you're a young guy, I would imagine you're going to be involved with this company for a while. Do you think that diesel has the staying power amid what the EPA is doing to further make those emissions stricter and stricter in the diesel engines? Do you think that diesel will continue to make sense, or are you looking at gasoline or again propane?
So my preferred bus would be a gasoline bus. Diesel is a really good fuel, I guess, for lots of things, but cold weather it's not. For backup buses that have to sit outside and go to restart it, if it ran kind of in the middle of summer and now it's November and we need to go start it, all the fuel is gelled up, so I have to deal with gelled up fuel. Most of the problems that I have on my newer diesel buses are from the DEF system. So I would prefer gasoline over diesel. The amount of fuel mileage difference, I don't believe is much. The diesels are getting about 10 miles per gallon. I think it's 9.9, where the gasoline in these same size buses are getting 7 to 8. So the amount of extra cost for the diesel and the repairs they have to make for the mileage we run these buses, I don't see the need for a diesel bus. Running a gasoline engine for 150 to 180,000 miles is not really that big of an issue. And they heat just as well or better than a diesel bus. So gasoline is my preferred. The only problem is a lot of manufacturers don't give a lot of options for gasoline in their bigger buses.
Options in what way? Like, just explain that, I guess. What do you mean by the options? Because there are, the larger for the most part, most of the larger OEMs offer a gasoline, but what kind of further options or would you be looking for?
Well, Thomas is my preferred bus. Those guys are really good to work with. And at this point, they don't offer a gasoline engine on their bigger buses.
Okay.
I believe Bluebird does.
And I see. Yeah.
And I haven't really looked into the IC buses. They have propane buses in those sizes, but the infrastructure to get that set up, it's kind of a toss up. I would try a propane bus to see how it worked. I don't mind trying things.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's really interesting. I think, you've given a really good perspective there. Because again, it doesn't get colder anywhere. Even this past winter where we had some crazy weather down here in the lower 48 where, some places that in the Midwest that weren't used to seeing -50, we're seeing it. It's kind of like an anomaly, but definitely you brought some really good data there. So I think the lesson learned is, learn from folks like Stretch, go to conferences, go to trade shows, talk to people that are actually operating these buses. Everyone's different, right, Stretch? So what works for one might not work for the other. But I really appreciate you coming on and joining us, especially during spring break. I know you maybe want to have some fun stuff that you want to get to do this week, but obviously you're running a business there. So really appreciate you taking some time out and sharing your story with us.
Yeah, I was excited to hear the call that you guys wanted to have me on here. I do like talking about the electric bus. It's a good conversation starter, and I do have some negative stuff about it. I won't be getting another one, but the bus is probably the most favorite bus to drive out of the buses on the fleet. It being quiet, and it rides a lot nicer with air ride suspension. And it is a very comfortable bus to ride. So it has its pluses and minuses. For what it is a good bus.
Yeah, well, we have to remember it's still very early on in this whole electrification phase that we're in. So I think things are getting figured out. And like any new technology, there's going to be some bumps in the road. But, it'll be interesting to see how everything plays out over the next decade. And I'm sure you're also going to be interested to see how that all works out. So, but again, Stretch, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. And best of luck to you out there.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent interviews. Thank you so much to Stephen Whaley, Stretch, Mr. Ryan Gray. Appreciate you guys coming on, spending a little time with us on the podcast today. Special thanks to our sponsors, TransFinder, IC Bus, and the Propane Education Research Council. Guys, we love you. Share the podcast with everybody in the nation. Get out on social media. Make sure you listen every week. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to pods. We've got everything you need in the school transportation industry. stnonline.com. Also, check out that latest March issue. All the great stories we've got in there, chock full of information, interesting interviews. Guys, you can't miss an issue. It's got so much good stuff. Don't forget STN Expo as well this summer. We'd love to see you lock in those early bird and super early bird rates, stnexpo.com. Guys, we love you. We'll see you next week.